Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the August 30th, 2022 meeting of the Environmental Resources Committee to order. We'll begin with item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, public comment, 15-minute limit. I have 5 individuals signed up to speak under general public comment. I do want to ask one clarifying question. Is there a Kevin Burt in the audience? Yes. Hi, Kevin. You wish to address your rezone on the agenda today?
I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Just to let you know about procedure, we're going to have a public hearing for the rezone. During that time, it would probably be most appropriate for you to come up and address the committee if we have any questions, okay? So during general public comment, we'll take general public comment, okay? Thank you. That being said, I have 5 individuals signed up to speak for public comment with our 15-minute limit. I'm gonna set a max per individual, no more than 3 minutes per piece, to be fair to everybody. Going down the list here, we'll begin with Dan Barth. Lori, name and resident or municipality, right? Not full address? Okay. So I would just ask if you come up to the mic, please state your name and the municipality that you reside in. Don't have to state the full address. I will give you a heads up at the when you have 30 seconds left for your for your speaking time, and I will not count saying the name and municipalities towards your 3 minutes. So, Dan, there you are.
All right, thank you. My name is Dan Barth, town of Knowlton, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about the mine and the presentation that you heard during your last meeting. I want to speak for things that we have lost and are losing. I want to speak for the clean water that we didn't used to filter. I want to speak for the forests and the healthy forests that many were cut down in the past and were in danger of cutting down a healthy forest here in terms of this mine. I want to speak for the Monarch Butterflies, which this year were put on the endangered species list. Their population is dangerously close to extinction levels. I want to speak in particular for the young woman who spoke here a couple of meetings ago, who lives out in the area where the mine is, and she expressed her concern, his fear about what the mine would do to her water, and I think probably to her property values. I want to remind you that the people who spoke last time about the mine have a lot to gain from doing the drilling and from the mine itself. We have a lot to lose. So think of what they told you as being what used car salesman is going to tell you about the used car he wants you to buy. There are reasons to be concerned about what they told you. One of the things that concerns me, having been out there, is the idea that no trees would be cut down to do this drilling. If you go out to the site where the mine is, it's woods. It's pretty thick woods. It's hard to imagine getting a drilling rig in there without roads, without taking down considerable number of trees. I think Mr. Overbeck expressed concern about that, and I was heartened to hear him say that. But I also want to be sure that you understand that if the mine actually happens, all of those trees will go. All of the ground in which those trees grow will go. All of the things living there will go. You will end up with a 450-foot hole in the ground. And I want you to be clear about that, because what I'm asking you to do today is, one, to consider hearing and ask that you hear from the other side of this. There are professional scientists and water experts who can tell you a lot about mining that you didn't hear last time. I'm also letting you know that sooner or later there's going to be a resolution here, and I'm asking you to support that resolution. It asks the state to go back to the Prove It First law, which was passed with good reason. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Ron James.
Hello today, Ron James, Town of Evergreen. Today's agenda indicates you are going to discuss objectives that align with the strategic and comprehensive plans. Protecting water is the most prevalent goal that aligns with Marathon County's objective to be the healthiest, safest, and most prosperous county in the state. It's on the wall. You recently heard from the exploration company about plans to drill hundreds of exploration holes. The public did not have an opportunity to ask questions and engage the company. We had really good questions for them. What do you think? Don't you want to hear our concerns and have a chance to engage with the public? We don't have an open. Why don't we have an open exchange at the next meeting where we can all respectfully talk to one another? We are well read in state code for exploration drilling. Code mandates that steel casing be used for each borehole to isolate drilling fluids and hazardous waste from the drinking water. Code also mandates that drilling fluids and toxic waste that overflow from the top of the casing just not spill all over the wet ground and go down into the drinking water. They have to be captured in spill-proof containers and taken away to special landfills. Code also mandates each hole be filled from the bottom upward with over 5,000 pounds of cement per hole. To fill holes properly, they will need an 80,000-pound truck full of cement for every 5 holes. How are they going to get a heavy cement truck out into that swamp? If they say they will mix the cement on site, it means the holes will not be properly filled because there is no physical way that humans can mix all that concrete on site. We didn't get explanations about how drilling will conform to state codes. After the meeting, the company offered to answer questions we have. They said we should get the business cards from the chair of this committee. Would you like us to copy you on the questions that we asked the company? Okay, we will. We'll also copy the DNR on that. Let's talk about having that exchange of concerns so that Marathon County keeps moving toward the goal of being the healthiest, safest, and most prosperous. Does anyone want to make a motion about that discussion today? Well, thank you.
Thank you. Next, for the people wishing to speak for public comment, I have Nancy Stencil.
Hi, Nancy Stencil, Town of Red Mountain. Act 134 greatly reduced our permitting process, made it much easier for mining companies to come in and explore and develop. I also know that federal law requires the opportunity for public comment and to request a public informational hearing. So I'm trusting that this will happen because Greenlight Metals are prospectors. They come in, they sell to the highest bidder, and it doesn't matter what arrangements you have made with them in the past. I'd like to address boreholes, because the downside to boreholes is the impact on the immediate environment where they are dug. Where will be the oversight on this project? It's my biggest question. And I ask again mostly because the groundwater out there is 0 to 20 feet. And even if it was deeper, there's still the risk of contaminants, and we need to make sure the casings are used. I truly believe that the water needs to be tested before and after. And we also need to test any kinds of drilling fluids or any foams that might be used, even if it is rhodosidic drilling. And it's my understanding that this is going to start with 100 to 125 holes. And these holes are going to be approximately 33 feet apart. We're talking a lot of space there. And the CEO has planned on 5 or 6 more drilling programs over the next 5 years. That's like over 500 holes. And with the drastic increase of boreholes, you're going to greatly decrease the water table. And that right there is going to make a huge, huge impact on your environment. And, who's going to be making sure the Greenlight Metals is following the state code to the letter of the law? on everything from the drilling to the filling. Where is the oversight going to be on this project? And I'm sure that you guys also want to see that. So, I mean, it looks like you're agreeing with me here, so I know you want this too. And, so many times this is a boom and bust. And the people that really suffer are the people
30
that
seconds.
live out there. Their property values go down. So I'm just hoping that you're going to take all of this into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Eric Rempala.
Okay, my name's Eric Rempala. I spoke last meeting. I'm from Irma. I've had experience with some mining issues up in Oneida County as I'm a property owner up there. And just some quick questions that I would have for you, or for you possibly to answer or ask GLM, Greenlight Metals. And as Nancy said, the reason we're here is because of Act 134 and the repeal of the Prove It First law. That's what led to to the speculative presentation that you got last week. Used car salesman, I believe someone said? Yes, I mean, very conveniently worded information that did not have enough depth. So I'm going to ask you to please dig deeper. One of the questions you might want to ask is, why are there 3 companies for a bunch of guys, prospectors? Why do they need 3 companies? One's a Canadian company selling stock to garner money, another Wisconsin-based company, and an LLC, limited liability company, based in Marathon County. Limited liability. Research that, understand the shells that you have to go through before you finally get your hands on the responsible people. And you don't, because these companies are built with companies underneath to take the hits when it comes to having problems. Look into it. I would definitely look in. Ask them why it takes 3 companies to be a prospector. Because that's what these guys are doing. They're going to come, they're going to drill holes. If they find something promising, they're going to sell it to a mining company. They don't have the money, they don't have the wherewithal to do that business. They're going to sell that, they're going to cash it in. And what they're going to use is they're going to use their investors' money and our water resources as chips to roll on the casino table and hope for a win. Because they're not gambling anything of their own. They're gambling us and they're Canadian company investors. I think that's what they are. They told you who they were, that they were an exploration company. They told you that who they were. So they told you, hey, I worked here, I worked there, I was in Minnesota, Wisconsin, across the... Those guys are hired guns. They go where the money is to be made. And now they're here to make money. They're not here to protect your water. So many things that they said that were questionable. The Flambeau mine was no example of a successful mine, and it still has impaired waterways to this day. There's regulation and execution. Water monitoring questions at Flambeau.
Time has expired. Thank you. We have to get on to the next speaker. Okay, 5th speaker, I have Kathy Cool-Barth.
Kathy Conley-Barth, Knowlton. I want to follow on the last speaker, and I want to say something about the Flambeau mine. We are talking about relying on the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. for the Flambeau mine, they didn't require a permit that was required under the Federal Clean Water Act. There was quite a lawsuit that followed. And it turns out that Stream C on that site in Flambeau is now listed as an impaired stream. So I don't think we want our waters in Marathon County to follow that same process. And the result that impaired status is a result of the contaminants that were released by the mining operation. I bring this up questioning the veracity of green light metals. That wasn't brought to us. I didn't know it at the time either until I read more. Regarding some of the testing that's done, in the early 80s, the DNR would be testing the parts per million many times for things like gasoline contaminants. And then they started testing in the parts per billion, and that was for things like benzene, toluene, xylene, ethylbenzene, things that were found especially toxic in gasoline. And that was in the parts per billion. Now PFAS, the guidance is going up to the parts per trillion. If you don't have the sensitivity in your testing equipment, you're not going to be able to pick that up. So someone should be looking at whether the testing that is done to as an exact requirements as are current. And I don't think the DNR at this point, I'm not sure they actually have their own testing ability, their own lab, and I'm not sure they have the equipment. I can't speak for that, but I'm guessing that they may not have the equipment at this point to test for parts per trillion.
30 seconds.
So I'm just saying we need to look at this and be sure that we're getting the information we need. We aren't necessarily going to be given the information by a company that is looking to prospect for minerals. So we need to protect ourselves. It's always a good idea, no matter what we're doing, whether it has to do with our environment or something else that's questionable that's being done. Really,
Time has
we have to
expired.
look at
Thank you.
both sides.
Okay, I have no one else listed to speak under public comment, so now I am moving on from public comment, item 3 to item 4. Approval of the August 2nd, 2022 committee minutes. What was the pleasure of the committee? Motion by Seefeld, second by Sherpinski. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Moving on to item number 5, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, or resolution. 5A, public hearings, review, possible actions, and possible recommendations to the county board for its consideration. We have county zoning changes. Before we begin, I'd please ask everybody to mute your phones. The Marathon County ERC is now meeting in public hearing on the location, plan, specifications, and purpose of the following projects. We have 4A1, Kevin Burt, general agriculture to low-density residential, town of Spencer. Sorry, 5A1, Kevin Burt. 5A2, Village of Spencer, rural residential to CVRC, conservation recreation, town of Spencer. And then item number 5A4, which is Irvin L. Miller, general agriculture to low-density residential in the town of Holton. Very briefly here, introduce members of the committee. Myself, Jacob Lionhan, the chair, Supervisor Alan Drabeck, the vice chair of the ERC, Supervisor Seefeld, Supervisor Oberbeck, Supervisor Ritter, Supervisor Vensky, Supervisor Shavinsky, Supervisor Unger, Marilyn Bend, our Wisconsin Towns and Villages Association rep, and then Rodney Roskoff, our Farm Service Agencies rep. Also present are Lori Miskimans, our Conservation Planning and Zoning Director, Kirsty Heidenreich, County Conservationist, Shad Harvey, our Land Resource Manager, Nicole Delaney, our Administrative Coordinator, Garrett Poggle, Land Use Technician, Amanda Walsh, our Zoning Technician, and Teal Fikesen, our Land Use Specialist. The establishment of the ERC is required by law for purposes of administration of county ordinances and land conservation programs. This committee must follow state laws and local ordinances as written. This committee cannot change or ignore any part of the ordinances or state laws and must apply the laws as written. The purpose of this committee is to hear and decide on proposed ordinances and ordinance revisions, rezoning petitions, and provide direction on land conservation and planning programs. The ERC will give a full and fair hearing to any person applying for a rezone petition. A taped recording is being made of the meeting, which will assist with preparation of written hearing minutes. Committee is interested in hearing all pertinent comments and questions. Each hearing will be opened by reading the public notice and allowing staff to present a staff report, including evidence from any on-site inspection. The applicant and anyone wishing to testify will be sworn in and allowed to give testimony. Witnesses will be called in order of those first in favor, second opposed, and then third as interested may appear. The committee may ask questions of the zoning staff and applicant. It is necessary that we set a reasonable time limit on individual statements and on the overall length of the hearing. To promote orderly discussion, anyone wishing to present oral testimony or ask questions relating to the hearing should state your name and present your testimony or questions so it becomes part of the official record. We request you avoid repetition. Once the committee has all the necessary facts, the chairman will close the hearing, allowing no further testimony, and the committee will deliberate and decide in front of the public whether the applicant has met the standards in the ordinance. No additional testimony from the public is allowed during the deliberation. However, the committee may question staff for purposes of clarification. After a decision is made, the committee will proceed to the next hearing. Many of the decisions made by the committee are a recommendation to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, who will take up the matter at a future county board meeting. Please contact staff for more information regarding this county board process. The committee will now hear the application of 5A1, Kevin Burt, General Agriculture to Low-Density Residential in the town of Spencer, and we will begin with our staff report. Garrett, I'm going to swear you in before we get started. Garrett, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
All right, this is the petition to rezone land for Kevin Burt and staff report August 30th, 2022 for the Environmental Resources Committee. The petitioner is Kevin Burt. He resides at 104-201 Mann Road in Marshfield, Wisconsin, 54449. Property owner is Kevin Burt, shown at the above address. Location of the rezone request, the area proposed to be rezoned is in the town of Spencer on Mann Road, just west of the intersection of Mann Road and Beebe Road. The petition of Kevin Burt to amend the General Code of Ordinances for the Marathon County Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone lands from general agriculture to LDR low-density residential, described as part of the northeast quarter of Section 33, Township 26 North, Range 2 East, Town of Spencer. The area proposed to be rezoned is described as Lot 2 of the preliminary CSM, parcel PIN number 074-2602-331-0999. Public hearings and meetings. The Town of Spencer Town Board met on July 12, 2022. Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee meeting scheduled today, August 30th, 2022 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. The existing zoning district is general agriculture. The existing generalized land use map for the town of Spencer as part of their comprehensive plan from 2017 states the area proposed to be rezoned is shown as residential and outdoor recreation in the town's comprehensive plan existing land use map from 2017. The adjacent land uses are comprised of outdoor recreation, agriculture, woodlands, and residential uses. The proposed zoning district is low-density residential. The purpose of the LDR district is to accommodate single-family residential use along existing streets and to promote single-family residential development involving the extension of new streets where sanitary sewers and municipal water may be available. The densities are intended to provide the areas of suburban character in the community and to prevent excessive demands on sewage and the water systems, streets, schools, and other community facilities. The districts are intended to avoid overcrowding by requiring certain minimum yards, open spaces, and site area while making available a variety of dwelling types and densities to serve a wide range of individual requirements and thereby providing a more orderly and efficient extension of public facilities. The town's comprehensive plan, future land use map from their 2021 plan. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as agriculture in the town's comprehensive future land use map. Adjacent land uses are comprised of the agricultural, residential, and woodland uses. This is the certified survey map showing lots 1 and 2. An aerial photo. The farmland preservation. The town of Spencer does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. On July 12th, 2022, the town of Spencer Town Board recommended approval to the Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee. Staff comments. Number 1, the rezoning is substantially consistent with the following plans: Marathon County Comprehensive Plan, Town Comprehensive Plan, and the Marathon County Farmland Preservation Plan. The Marathon County Comprehensive Plan relies on the town's comprehensive plan regarding specific land uses and zoning districts for individual parcels. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown to be designated as agriculture in the town's future land use map. CPC staff rely on the towns to make these recommendations, given the town board members and residents know their town and the future purpose and intent of the plan. The area in question was not designated as a farmland preservation area. The town of Spencer does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. As indicated by the town's resolution recommendation, it appears the rezone is consistent with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. Number 2, the location of the proposed development minimizes the amount of agricultural land converted and will not substantially impair or limit current or future agricultural uses or other protected farmland. No farmland will be consumed by this rezone. The applicant has demonstrated that A, there is a need for the proposed development. B, adequate public facilities are present or will be provided, no impacts on road, water, sewage, drainage, schools, and emergency services, etc. And providing public facilities will not be an unreasonable burden to the local government. A, the need is for a proposed land division. B, all necessary public facilities are anticipated to be provided, if not already provided, given any proposed development would rely on private systems, such as a private well and sanitary system if applicable. No anticipated burden on local government. All applicable building, construction, and use standards will be applied during the zoning and building permit review process. Number 4, the rezoning will not cause unreasonable air and water pollution, soil erosion, or adverse effects on rare or irreplaceable natural areas. All federal, state, and local permits and approvals are required for any applicable development on site. Additionally, the proposed rezone will likely not result in any unreasonable air and water pollution, as all pertinent regulations apply and will need to be adhered to. Any disturbance greater than 1 acre would need a DNR stormwater management plan. Number 5, the town has approved the proposed rezone of the property. The town of Spencer's town board has recommended approval of the rezone petition. Number 6, all concerns from other agencies on the proposed rezone have been addressed, the DNR, highway, DOT. What are the concerns? The county was not made aware of any concerns from other agencies. The staff recommendation, the rezone meets all the zoning district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and as indicated by the town's resolution. Based on the information provided above, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Garrett. Any questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you. Moving on to those wishing to speak in favor, I'd ask that anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone for item 5A1, the Kevin Burt rezone, please come forward and identify yourself at this time, either by unmuting over WebEx or by coming up to the microphone here. I will just say, Kevin, if you did wish to address your rezone, now would be the appropriate time.
You guys would have any questions of me?
If you'd like that, the best thing would be for you to come forward and be sworn in, okay? So, Kevin, I would just ask that you state your name and address into the microphone, please.
Kevin Burt, 104-201 Man Road, Marshfield, 54449.
Okay. And what you mentioned earlier, similar, that's what you wish to offer for your testimony, if there are any questions?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here to answer any questions that the board might have
Okay.
of me.
Do any of the committee members have questions for Kevin? No? Okay. The reason we do this, Kevin, is because to follow procedure, okay?
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
seeing and hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Oh, Kevin, I'm sorry. Do you come back up to the microphone? I apologize. Kevin, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Everything you just said is factual to the best of your knowledge, right?
yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I need to get better at this. All right. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone for 5A1, Kevin Burr, please identify yourself at this time. I'll call one more time after this. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone? Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone for 5A1 for Kevin Burr, please identify yourself at this time. I'll call one more time. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone? Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak as interested in the proposed rezone for item 5A1, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak as interested for the proposed rezone? Seeing and hearing that no one else wishes to testify, I am now declaring the public hearing on item 5A1, Kevin Burt, General Agriculture to Low Density Residential, Town of Spencer, now closed. The committee will now deliberate on the application, apply the standards of the zoning ordinance. Fairly straightforward, based on the staff's recommendation. Unless there's any deliberation or discussion, what was the pleasure of the committee? Supervisor Seefeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to request a petition of Kevin Burke to amend the General Code of Ordinance for Marathon County, Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone land from general agriculture to low-density residential, and to approve the conclusions of law and to forward it to the county board.
Motion is made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Drabeck. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 5A2, Village of Spencer, rural residential to CVRC Conservation Recreation. Garrett, we're back to you.
All right, this is for the Village of Spencer, petition to rezone land, staff report, August 30th, 2022, the Environmental Resources Committee. The petitioner is the Village of Spencer, located at 105 Park Street, Spencer, Wisconsin, 54479. The property owners are the Village of Spencer, as shown on the above address. Location of the rezone request, the area proposed to be rezoned is in the town of Spencer on County Road C, just west of the intersection of Ulrich Road. The petition of the Village of Spencer to amend the General Code of Ordinances for Marathon County, Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone lands from RR rural residential to CV RV conservation and recreation, described as part of the northwest quarter of Section 11, Township 26 North, Range 2 East, Town of Spencer. The area proposed to be rezoned is parcel PIN number 074-2602-112-0996. Public hearings, the Town of Spencer Town Board met on August 8, 2022. Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee meeting August 30th, 2022 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. The existing zoning district is rural residential. The existing generalized land use map for the town of Spencer from their comprehensive plan in 2017. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as woodlands, open lands, and is designated as the McMillan Wildlife Area in the town's comprehensive plan for their existing land use map for 2017. Adjacent land uses are comprised of woodlands, open lands, and the McMillan Wildlife Area. The proposed zoning district is CVRC, Conservancy Recreation District. The purpose of the Conservancy Recreation District is to provide areas that conserve existing undeveloped natural areas and include the following. 1, to preserve and protect the value of distinctive geological, topographic, botanic, historic, and scenic areas. 2, to protect the ecological balance of an area. 3, to conserve natural resources such as river valleys and tracts of forest land, and 4, to reduce the problems created by intensive development of areas having excessively high water tables or which are subject to flooding or which are topographically unsuited for urban-type uses. 5, to provide for the orderly and attractive grouping of passive recreation-oriented establishments, facilities, and structures. The town's comprehensive future land use map, the area proposed to be rezoned, is shown as outdoor recreation in the town's comprehensive future land use map. Adjacent land uses are comprised of woodlands and outdoor recreational uses. The town of Spencer does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. This is the aerial photo of the area. Town recommendation on August 8, 2022, the Town of Spencer's Town Board recommended approval to Marathon County's Environmental Resources Committee. Conclusions of law. Number 1, the rezoning is substantially consistent with the following plans. Note how the proposed relates to future land use plan and the vision, goals, objectives, and policies of the plan. A, Marathon County Conservation Comprehensive Plan, the Town Comprehensive Plan, and Marathon County's Farmland Preservation Plan. Marathon County Comprehensive Plan relies on the Town Comprehensive Plan regarding specific land uses and zoning districts for individual parcels. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown to be designated as outdoor recreation in the town's future land use map. CPZ staff rely on the towns to make these recommendations, given the town board members and residents know their town and the true purpose and intent of the plan. The area in question was not designated as a farmland preservation area. The town of Spencer does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. As indicated by the town's future land use map and resolution recommendation, it appears the rezone is consistent with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. The location of the proposed development minimizes the amount of agricultural land converted. It will not substantially impair or limit current or future agricultural use of other protected farmland. No farmland will be consumed by this rezone. The applicant has demonstrated that A, there is a need for the proposed development, B, adequate public facilities are present and will be provided. Note impacts on roads, water, sewage, drainage, schools, emergency services, etc. And C, providing public facilities will not be an unreasonable burden to the local government. A, the need to update the zoning district is to comply with the proposed use. B, all necessary public facilities are anticipated to be provided, if not already provided, given any proposed development would rely on private systems, such as a private well and sanitary system, if applicable. C, no anticipated burden on local government. All applicable building, construction, and use standards will be applied during the zoning and building permit review process. 4, the rezoning will not cause unreasonable air and water pollution, soil erosion, or adverse effects on rare or irreplaceable natural resources. All federal, state, and local permits and approvals are required for any applicable development on site. Additionally, the proposed rezone will likely not result in any unreasonable air and water pollution, as all pertinent regulations apply and will need to be adhered to. Any disturbance greater than 1 acre would need a DNR stormwater management permit. Number 5, the town has approved the proposed rezone of the property. The Town of Spencer Town Board has recommended approval of this rezone petition. Number 6, all concerns from other agencies on the proposed rezone have been addressed. DNR, Highway, DOT. What are the concerns? The county has not been made aware of any concerns from other agencies. Staff recommendation, the rezone meets all the zoning district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and as indicated by the town's resolution. Based on the information provided above, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, any questions for Garrett? Seeing and hearing none, thank you. Moving on, anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone, we're on item 5A2, Village of Spencer, Rural Residential to CBRC, Conservation Recreation, Town of Spencer. Please unmute yourself over WebEx or please come up to the mic and state your name and address at this time. I'll call one more time. Anybody wishing
Paul Hench with the Village Administrator, Village of Spencer.
Could you state your name one more time, sir? I'm sorry.
Paul Hench,
And Paul, your address,
Village
please.
Administrator, Village of Spencer, 105 South Park Street, Spencer, Wisconsin.
We got that for the record, right? Okay, good. Sorry about that, Paul. Sure, go ahead. Thank you.
That's okay. Just wanted to mention two things. Would like to see this parcel zoned to have contiguous zoning around the area. As I'm sure you note in your packets, all the other area surrounding this parcel is zoned recreation conservancy. And second, just want to make sure that this parcel can be used to the highest and best use in the area. And I am, of course, available for any questions for the committee.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, I didn't swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Paul, everything that you just said
And everything
is...
I said was the truth.
Thank you. Any questions for Paul? All right, Paul, thank you for being here. If there are any questions, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone for 5A2, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone? Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak opposed to the proposed rezone 5A2, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak opposed to the proposed rezone? Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak as interested in the proposed rezone 5A2, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak as interested? Seeing and hearing that no one else wishes to testify for this application, I am now declaring the public hearing on item 5A2, Village of Spencer, rural residential to CVRC, Conservation Recreation, Town of Spencer, now closed. The committee will now deliberate on the application, apply the standards of the zoning ordinance. What is the pleasure of the committee? Supervisor Seefeld? Supervisor Drabeck?
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezone request for the Village of Spencer from rural residential to conservative recreation. Didn't say that quite right. Based on the town's recommendation, staff report, and conclusions of law.
Village.
Maybe village.
Village, probably, yeah. Motion is made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Sherfinsky. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to 5A4, Irvin L. Miller, General Ag to Low Density Residential, Town of Holton.
This is the petition to rezone land for Irvin Miller. Staff report. Staff report, August 30th, 2022, Environmental Resources Committee. The petitioner is Irvin L. Miller. He resides at 106-149 Holton Road, Abbotsford, Wisconsin, 54405. Property owners are Irvin L. and Rita D. Miller. They reside at the above address. Location of the rezone. Area proposed to be rezoned is in the town of Holton on Holton Road, centered between County Road F and Rosedale Avenue. The petition of Irvin L. Miller to amend the General Code of Ordinances for Marathon County Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone lands from GA General Agriculture to LDR Low Density Residential, described as part of the southeast quarter of Section 22, Township 29 North, Range 2 East, Town of Holton. The area proposed to rezone is described as Lot 1 of preliminary CSM, parent parcels 042-2902, 224-0995, and 042-2902, 224-0999. Public hearings. The Town of Holton Town Board met on July 20th, 2022. The Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee meeting today, August 30th, 2022 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. The existing zoning district is general agriculture. The existing generalized land use map for the town of Holton from their comprehensive plan in 2006. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as a single-family residential in the town's comprehensive plan, existing land use map from 2000. Adjacent land uses are comprised of cropland, residential, other agriculture, and woodland uses. The proposed zoning district is LDR, low-density residential. The town comprehensive plan for future land use map from their 2006 plan. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown as single-family residential in the town's comprehensive future land use plan map from 2000. Adjacent land uses are comprised of croplands, residential, other agriculture, and woodlands uses. The town of Holton does not participate in farmland preservation zoning. The aerial photo identifying the parcel. The town recommendation on July 20th, 2022, the town of Holton Town Board recommended approval to Marathon County's Environmental Resources Committee. Staff comments regarding ERC conclusions of law. The rezoning is substantially consistent with the following plans. Note how the proposed relates to the future land use plan and the vision, goals, objectives, and policies of the plan. Marathon County Comprehensive Plan, Town Comprehensive Plan, and Marathon County Farmland Preservation Plan. The Marathon County Comprehensive Plan relies on the Town Comprehensive Plan regarding specific land uses and zoning districts for the individual parcels. The area proposed to be rezoned is shown to be designated as single-family residential in the town's future land use map. CPZ staff rely on the towns to make these recommendations, given the town board members and residents know their town and the true purpose and intent of the plan. The area in question was not designated as a farmland preservation area. The town of Holton does not participate in farmland preservation zoning, as indicated by the town's future land use map and resolution recommendation. It appears the rezone is consistent with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. Number 2, the location of the proposed development minimizes the amount of agricultural land converted and will not substantially impair or limit current or future agricultural uses of other protected farmland. No farmland will be consumed by the rezone. The applicant has demonstrated that A, there is a need for the proposed development, B, adequate public facilities are present or will be provided, note impacts on roads, water, sewage, drainage, schools, emergency services, etc., and providing public facilities will not be an unreasonable burden to the local government. A, the need is for a proposed land division. B, all necessary public facilities are anticipated to be provided, if not already provided, given any proposed development. Would rely on private systems such as a private well and sanitary system if applicable. No anticipated burden on local government. All applicable building, construction, and use standards will be applied during the zoning and building permit review process. Number 4, the rezoning will not cause unreasonable air and water pollution, soil erosion, or adverse effects on rare or irreplaceable natural areas. All federal, state, and local permits and approvals are required for any applicable development on site. Additionally, the proposed rezone will likely not result in any unreasonable air and water pollution, as all pertinent regulations apply and will need to be adhered to. Any disturbance greater than 1 acre would need a DNR stormwater management permit. Number 5, the town has approved the proposed rezone of the property. The town of Holton Town Board has recommended approval of this rezone petition. Number 6, all concerns from other agencies on a proposed rezone have been addressed, DNR, Highway, DOT. What are the concerns? The county was not made aware of any concerns from other agencies. Staff recommendation, the rezone meets all of the district zoning standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimensions. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and as indicated by the town resolution. Based on the information provided, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears that the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors.
Any questions for staff? Seeing and hearing none, thank you, Garrett. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone for item 5A4, Urban L. Miller, General Ag to Low Density Residential, Town of Holton, please identify yourself at this time. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone 5A4, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of 5A4? Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak opposed to the proposed rezone, item number 5A4, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak against the proposed rezone, please identify yourself at this time. Seeing and hearing none. Anybody wishing to speak as interested, the proposed rezone, item 5A4, please identify yourself at this time. Last call. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the proposed rezone 5A4, please identify yourself at this time. Seeing and hearing that no one else wishes to testify for this application, I am now declaring the public hearing for item 5A4, Urban L. Miller, General Ag to Low Density Residential, Town of Holton, now closed. The committee will now deliberate on the application and apply the standards of the zoning ordinance. What is the pleasure of the committee? Supervisor Seefeld.
I'll make a motion for the petition of Urban L. Miller to amend the General Code of Ordinance of Marathon County, Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone land from general agriculture to low-density residential in the town of Holton, and to pass the conclusions of law and to forward it to the county board.
Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Ritter. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, staff, for the reports. 5B, review and possible recommendations to the county board for its consideration. Town zoning changes pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 60.62 sub 3. We have none. 5C, review and possible recommendations to the county board for its consideration. We have none. And 5D, review and possible action. We have none. 6, educational presentations, outcome monitoring reports, and committee discussion. We have 6A, department updates. Conservation Planning and Zoning, Park Rec and Forestry, Solid Waste. 6A1, update from the administrator on the budget preparation process. And
I think he's
we
in the
currently do
hallway.
not have an administrator, so,
I think he's in the hallway.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for that. I just wanted to take a couple minutes of your time before you get into your rest of your presentations, talk a little bit about the budget and what the process will be for preparing that budget, at least from the side of administration. As you all know from your orientation, the role of the administrator is one where one of my primary jobs each year is to develop the budget based on the insight from the county board. So let me tell you what that has historically looked like and what I anticipate it looking like this year. And this actually, the genesis for this was we had a discussion at the HR Finance and Property Committee with a new supervisor asking a couple of questions that led to this conversation. And I've been having what I've been calling the traveling road show, where I've been trying to recreate that discussion at each of the standing committees because I thought it was pretty helpful. But essentially, starting from the point that we did again in orientation, the role of the county board is one of policy. They provide policy direction to staff in all the work that we do. So what does that look like through the budget? You set policy in terms of the programs and services that staff deliver within, again, the realm of state law and administrative code. So what that means is that the standing committee, absent direction from you about adding a new program or adding more of an existing program, ending an existing program or asking for less of it, my job and all of the jobs of all of our wonderful staff is to try to do all of the work we did in the preceding year in the next year, knowing that we're going to start out with a structural deficit. That is, we have less money to do all the same stuff. So you might ask, well, how do you do that? Because that doesn't sound like a very sustainable path. And you are right, it's not overly sustainable, but there are a couple things that staff do on an ongoing basis to essentially combat that. And one of the things we do is we are constantly looking at opportunities for continuous improvement, process improvement, and quality improvement. We have a program in Marathon County, it's called the Ideas Academy, where we are training staff, and our goal is to actually have all of our staff trained, more than 750 staff trained on principles of waste and process improvement to be able to identify those opportunities to increase efficiency. So I'll give you just a brief example. It's an example I used at the Infrastructure Committee several years ago. We did a process improvement event around the process we use to do crack filling on our highways. And we tried to identify, we mapped out with sticky notes on a wall all the processes that go into that. And essentially, we were able to almost double our capacity in terms of how many feet we were able to crack fill in a day, while also decreasing staff. So that's just one example. There are a great many. I see Corporation Counsel Purner is here. We've done a process improvement in our child protection realm with our court system between Corporation Counsel, social services, and the courts. And I could go on and on with those. But that's one thing we do. The second we do is we try to use technology to help us be more efficient with our staff time and our energy to be able to accomplish the goals that you set in terms of programs. So you'll see a lot of the work that is done through CCIT, our new enterprise resource planning tool, our HR system that you've heard about, our Workday implementation. That is right in line with this idea of utilizing technology to be more efficient. And then the last one I want to talk briefly about is model changes. The county board sets policy in terms of what programs you want us to accomplish. Staff's job is to continually, as we can, look out and say, is there a better model for us to deliver this program or service that the board has identified? So I'll give you, again, an example that several of you may have heard about recently. And historically, the county board for decades has identified having a nurse home visiting program as a desired service, a desired program in Marathon County. Now, the model that has been used, again, for decades has been the start right model. If you look to previous budgets, you'll see, at least in the last several, and certainly in the last two that I've drafted, that program is specifically called out within the budget. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The county board has had historically a great deal of interest in it. It is not a mandatory program, but it is a program that the county board has said has a solid return on investment. So it has been continued. For again, many years, the county board has looked at that program. Does it continue to deliver value? So in 2020, one of the things that I did was I worked with the university year partnership that we have with the University of Wisconsin, and I wanted to be able to provide more information to the county board about the model that we are using, the Start Right model. Gather information, gather data, be able to provide that information to the county board. There's a very nice report. I won't bore you with all the details. It's available on the University Year website under the Marathon County tab. You can read that. The short version is the analysis determined that the Start Right program is valuable. It delivers significant value to Marathon County. However, it's difficult to get very strong return on investment data without spending a great deal of time, energy, and effort gathering and analyzing that data. So our next step was then, as staff, I asked the health officer and her team to look at maybe there's a better model that can deliver the same outcomes for the people we serve, but also deliver the information that the county board has been kind of not expressly, but implicitly asking for with these discussions about Start Right relative to return on investment, specific return on investment for Marathon County. So the health officer did that, her and her team, and they identified a new model, different from Start Right. It's called the Nurse Family Partnership Model. Very similar outcomes, but it's a nationally utilized model. It's used in more than 40 states, one of which is Wisconsin, used in 8 counties, I believe, in Wisconsin, that has the opportunity to build that longitudinal data set and also give better return on investment data based on all the other jurisdictions that are using it. So that's an example of a model change that we will be implementing in 2023 as staff. The program is still the same. County board has asked for a nurse home visiting program. We're still delivering it. We're just changing the model. Other models, the things that we look at are whether we contract out for a certain service or do it ourselves. That's not a county board policy decision. That's a staff operations decision. It's a model decision. So those are the things that staff are looking to do each and every year to deal with that structural deficit. You'll hear in the near future about some other model changes we're going to make relative to the shelter home that we've historically operated. You'll hear again, how each of these is financially a good thing. The change from the Start Right model to the nurse family partnership model is going to save us about $325,000 in year one and more money moving forward. The savings for our shelter home model change are not quite that impressive, but still nevertheless a very important tool to address that structural deficit each year. So again, the reason I lay that out as to what staff are doing is to reinforce the importance of what the county board role is and your role as a standing committee. Absent direction from you that you want a budget that stops doing a program or does less of it or adds a new program or does more of an existing program, we're going to do what we have historically done, which is strive to deliver all of the same programs and services that you've historically asked for in the 2023 budget. So that was longer than each time I say I'm going to be short, it goes longer than I intend, but that's the process that has historically been used, and that's the same process that we're going to use. And I've asked staff to, as they build their departmental budgets, look for those model change opportunities as well as additional revenue opportunities that might exist. But again, I want to emphasize for this committee, the role of the standing committee is to provide that direction within your sphere of your reporting relationships. If you have things you don't want us to do anymore, please provide that direction and we can try to incorporate that in the budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to take any
Lance, one thing, and I will take questions from the committee, but we do have, Rodney, when did you get appointed to the committee? Was that last spring?
No, January.
January? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 brand-new members of the committee here that have yet to go through a county budgeting process. So Lance, why don't you give us a 2-minute overview of what fall looks like in regards to the budget? Because that might help generate some questions here too. They already know what the standing committee's role is in that process, but give them a better idea what the process overall looks like.
Sure. So every year in Marathon County's budget, I encourage you all, if you haven't looked at the riveting read that is our annual budget document, you'll see it's our budget in 2022 was just shy of $200 million. A lot of money to deliver a lot of services, but not enough money to deliver all the things that I'm sure all of you would want to deliver if money were no option, or were no object, I should say. So in terms of structural deficit, like I talked about, I think it's a good baseline to remember that every year we are subject in the state of Wisconsin to what are affectionately referred to as levy limits. We are restricted in the new revenue in terms of property tax that comes into counties. And that levy limit is essentially, we are limited to what is referred to as net new construction in Marathon County. And that number has generally, historically been, over the last couple of years, about between $900,000 and $975,000. Again, significant amount of money. When you consider that the cost of health insurance and the delivery of health insurance to our staff, the increase of health insurance statewide, and I think within my budget message you can read on under the health insurance section, in 2018, more than 60 counties, the cost of the increased cost of health insurance exceeded that net new construction number. So again, demonstrating the structural deficit piece that I referred to. Ignore inflation for a moment. Ignore inflation. In actual dollars, it's costing more because you have increased health insurance costs to deliver those services. Your health insurance increase is more than what you're bringing in new money. So that is, again, further demonstrates the work that staff are doing. That's why when I talk about model changes, another big model change that staff have been looking at much more closely the last 2 years has been health insurance. You know, we've hired a consultant to make sure we can have really tough conversations with our health insurance provider. We are fully insured in Marathon County through Wisconsin Group Health Trust to make sure that we can say, hey, no, you know what, we believe our increase shouldn't be 8%, it should be 2%, or it should be flat, or last year, we actually were able to secure a reduction in our healthcare costs, which is a really great thing. So those are the things that staff are doing as we build this budget. So you'll see it if you follow the discussions happening at the HR, Finance, and Property Committee. We're going through the budget assumption process right now, which is what are the things we're going to assume as we build that budget to bring to the county board. And one of the big things right now that has been a topic at HR Finance is, I said ignore inflation for a minute. Well, bring inflation back and also bring back, the pressures we all are seeing in our community, and certainly the county is feeling with respect to retaining and recruiting staff. You don't need to go very far to see a help wanted sign. If you want one, you can come down to our office. I can share one for a county job. If you know anyone looking for work, Marathon County is a great place to work. But everywhere is struggling with that. So we do have a class compensation study that we should be wrapping up in the next 30 days that is going to require significant funds to put into place. But all those things those are on the front end that staff are working on that will eventually find its way to the county board through the HR, Finance, and Property Committee, because the approval of the budget through that process of administration builds the budget with staff based on the policy direction from the board and the standing committees. I deliver that budget to the HR, Finance, and Property Committee. Once they have it, they can make modifications to it. But ultimately, they deliver that budget to the county board. You have a public hearing on that proposed budget, and then you will adopt a budget in November. I don't know if, Mr. Chair, if that was meeting your request?
The timeline was what I was looking for, and I appreciate the front end there with the examples of items that you're considering in regards to building the budget and what HR, Finance, Property is thinking of right now. Mainly what I wanted to communicate to the committee was that, being that it's August 30th, it's not that the budget will be next month, but it's definitely something that we'll have to be thinking about as we get closer to November. And I will say that as far as the preparation, Lance explained it very well as far as what our role is. But as far as the more intensive discussions, I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that happens at the HR Finance Committee as opposed to any of the other standing committees. Is that correct, Lance? I mean,
As it relates to what those budget assumptions are, absolutely. And just to expound upon timeline, your public hearing for your budget, I believe, is November 3rd. Your date to adopt the budget will be November 10th. But I will have that budget delivered to the HR, Finance, and Property Committee at the beginning of October.
and the November 3rd meeting should be at 8 o'clock.
I actually don't know what time.
Oh, really? Okay. I think it's usually at 8 because the city has their meeting. Oh, you don't have to?
No, I don't know that we're going to.
Oh,
We discussed that after the 1:30 in the morning, we got out that, after we had that 8.
yeah,
That we didn't want to happen.
sure. Well, thank you, Craig. Might not have to do that this year. That's good. Okay, questions from the committee. Supervisor Shafinsky, you had your hand up?
Yes. I do have one question, Mr. Administrator. You mentioned the levy limits and how that goes back to this net new build construction. How does the increase in property value or decrease in property value, it doesn't happen often, but we've seen it occasionally, how does that play into the levy limits?
Sure. And a great place to look for that is in the budget message that is part of the annual budget document that's on the website. We give a little description and then also a chart that illustrates the impact of an increase in equalized value, property value, and how that impacts the levy rate. But the overly simplistic answer is all other things being equal, if the value of your property goes up, the tax levy rate, the mill rate, will go down. All other things being equal. All things are not equal, so one of the ways that the levy rate is comprised of your operating levy limit, but also things that are outside of that operating levy limit, Like under the levy statute, anything you levy to fund libraries is outside of that levy limit. Anything, the biggest one, of course, is debt service. So your debt service, the money that you have to levy to service the debt, the borrowing that Marathon County has used in the past, is outside of that operating levy limit, but it does slow the decrease in the tax rate. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And again, please look at that. There's a nice chart that shows the average value of a home in Marathon County and how that has increased over time and how the levy rate has decreased over time.
So if I understand what you've said correctly, the increase or decrease in the property value versus the mill rate and the intent is for that to be somewhat neutral. Is that what you're saying?
No, the desire, as I understand it, the desire of the levy limits was to put constraints on local government's ability to increase property tax rates. I am not aware of any county in the state of Wisconsin that has a levy, a mill rate that is higher now than it was when levy limits were put in place. And you can see from the chart in the budget book for Marathon County, our levy rate has dropped pretty precipitously from the time that levy limits were put in place.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I'm on.
Hold on. Supervisor Overbeck, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a question, general question.
So Supervisor Overbeck, and then Marilyn, you can go next. Okay.
Thank
Go
you. Just one question. When I was on the city council and we dealt a lot with TIF districts, I think the county really should look at how TIF districts are utilized and the percentage of municipalities and what impact that has to levy limits as far as the increased value within the city and taking that off into TIF districts where the county does not get their fair share or the school districts. I think a better analysis really needs to be done on the impact of that over the years, for 30 years out or whatever, because some of these TIF districts last, for 30 years, and then they're renewed, or they're tried to be renewed. So I think that's another way of getting money back into the county finances.
Not sure that there's a question there, but I agree with you that understanding that impact is important. Under current state law, as I understand it, the county does not have the ability to essentially veto a request for the creation or extension of a TIF. They have a vote. Correct. One vote. Yeah.
Out of 6.
Yes, correct.
Marilyn, go ahead.
You have to realize that all the municipalities have an assessment value and that they're not all the same, what you're assessed at. But then it becomes equalized value. And you have to realize then that, it gets complicated when you get into that, so that if your assessment in your municipality is lower, it's going to be equalized, and then so it might go up or go down. So it's all depends on what you're assessed at, and the levy limits worksheets, they should be available very, very soon to know what you can go, what your new construction is. So it's very complicated when you get into the doing your budget and working with levy limits, equalized value, and assessed value.
Any other questions, comments for Lance? Lance, I think to go back to Supervisor Sherfinsky's comments from earlier, though, your tax rate is it's the levy amount divided by the total amount of value within the county. So if you think about it that way, if your levy goes up, obviously you'll have a higher tax rate. If the value of the property goes up, that tax rate should go lower because of that division. But there you go. Anything else for Lance? All right, Lance, thank you. Moving on to 7, policy issues discussion and potential committee determination. A, recommendations to executive committee for updates to the strategies, objectives, and expected outcomes found in the 2018 to 2022 strategic plan. I'm going to rattle these all off because I think they're all going to be addressed in some fashion during the presentation discussion. So we have 7A1, overview and recommendation from CPZ and Parks, Rec, and Forestry related to strat plan objectives 5.2 and 6.3. 7A2, new strategies to be added to the existing objectives in the plan. 7A3, strategies to be prioritized within existing objectives. And 7A4, strategies or objectives from the 2016 comprehensive plan to add to the strategic plan. I don't know who we're starting. Laura, are we starting with you?
Yeah, I'll
Okay, go
start
ahead.
out and then have a couple other staff speak to some of the outcomes that they specifically oversee. So I think, unless Craig, is there anything you want to add before we get started?
Not at this point. I reviewed your packet, and I'm not sure why I'm here, because I think you did a very good job with the updates.
Okay.
But if I could just, for a minute, just to get a recap as why we're here reviewing this strategic plan. The strategic plan is due to expire the end of this year. Each standing committee was requested to look at their objectives, which yours are 5.2 and 6.3, review those strategies and the outcome measures, which is done very well in your packet, and then make those recommendations to the executive committee so that we could revise the strategic plan. And this has a lot to do with Lance's budget when it comes to priorities that this committee feels need to be brought forward. So it does go hand in hand with that and his work plan. So, but no, as far as what you have in your packet explains, a lot of things that are suggestions and recommendations, which I totally agree with, but it's up to this committee to accept those changes. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair McEwen, and thank you, Supervisor Longenhan. So I think from our July discussion, what we took away from that was that the ERC is still very supportive, as our CPZ, Parks, Recs, and Forestry, in that objectives 5.2 and 6.3 remain our priorities for our departments from your direction. We have made a couple of suggested revisions to the strategies and the outcomes, primarily based on the idea that this strategic plan would be extended for 2 more years, and that we are making progress towards many of the outcomes that were identified back in 2018, but there's still more work to do. So quickly, I'll go over, so again, 5.2 is to promote sound land use decisions that conserve and preserve natural resources in decisions with economic development and growth. And 6.3 is to protect and enhance the quantity and quality of potable groundwater and potable surface water supplies. I think overall we agree that these, again, remain our 2 priority objectives. The one suggestion from conversation in July as well was that we as at CPZ have not actually been working on anything related to the strategy of developing a land capability index. The history there was that it was meant to be some sort of economic development strategy and direction, is the way we understand it. But I think Lance brought this up in July, that if the ERC does have something or a direction they would like us to pursue as it relates to economic development, we are looking for that direction from you. Right now, we do not have anyone whose time or work plans are dedicated to economic development within our county, so we're recommending possibly just tabling or removing that strategy for the time being and reconsidering it at the end of the next 2 years if the strategic plan is extended for 2 years. I will turn over to Kirsty Heidenreich, our county conservationist, Shad Harvey, our land resources manager, and Jamie Pauley and Tom Loveland from Parks, Rec, and Forestry to explain what else we're suggesting as it relates to the outcomes in 5.2 and 6.3. Kirsty, you're up first.
Okay, so right now, under the objective of promoting sound land use decisions, we have an outcome by December 31st, 2022. The phosphorus from cropland and farmsteads in the Fenwood Creek watershed is reduced by 20%, or a little over 14,000 pounds. We do have a suggested revision of keeping it as is and simply bumping that out to 2024, and I will get into in the next slide why we want to go down that road if you guys agree with it. Shad will discuss the next outcome dealing with zoning, and Jamie will cover the last outcome. Okay, so the reason, just for new committee members, one of the reasons that the Fenwood Creek watershed is brought up continually, not only in the county strategic plan, but in many other plans that you see floating around the county, like the Land and Water Resource Management Plan. This is one of the main smaller watersheds within the bigger Big O Plain watershed. And where we are right now, we currently estimate that we're about 37% towards our goal that the Conservation Department wanted to be at by the end of this year. So we're getting close to halfway there with a little over 5,000 pounds of phosphorus a year. And we were able to put these calculations together by the projects that we did through the last Fenwood Targeted Resource Management Grant, and then the projects that we're also currently doing through a small pot of DNR funds called the Multi-Discharge Variance Project. And so I know that previous staff members from Conservation have tried to find alternate routes of funding for the Fenwood watershed, and some of you know some of those historical asks that have been done. But since the large amount of funding that is needed for the Fenwood has just not been captured yet, even though we aren't at the goal where we wanted to be, it is encouraging that halfway there is in sight, given the extremely limited funds that have been available for the Fenwood Creek watershed. So we do feel that within the next 2 years, it is possible to reach that full 20% goal for the Fenwood by utilizing a new pot of money that we have becoming available to us on January 1st, 2023. Our department did successfully apply for a DNR large-scale targeted resource management grant, or TRIM grant, and we have about $350,000 to use in the Fenwood over the next few years. And we do have a really focused Fenwood outreach plan that will be starting to kick off this fall, so that we can really hit things hard in the Fenwood when the soils unthaw in spring of 2023. And so with our Fenwood plan, we're really going to be focusing on a buffer initiative within the Fenwood and wetland restoration. So we know that vegetative buffers along the streams and the main branch of the Fenwood, it's really an easy way to maximize water quality improvement with a lot of the minimal resources that it takes to have a buffer. We're also going to be focusing on building soil health and having a really rock solid community engagement plan as well. So that's how we think that in the next 2 years it is possible to get to that 20% total. Okay, Shan, do you want to take the next slide?
So kind of moving on to the outcome measure 2. Currently, it sits at, by December 31st, 2022, 4 more additional towns will be adopted into Marathon County zoning. The current number we're at still remains at 18. We haven't added any additional towns into county zoning. So moving forward, we feel the education push would be the most useful. There's been a lot of transition with our staff as well as towns, where we feel that there needs to be a lot of education with these individuals. So this would in turn help us kind of get the towns, whether they're county zoned, town zoned, or don't have any zoning. This would allow us to kind of get everybody together and provide them with education and let them make decisions on
on sound land use, and promote the benefits of county zoning. So that's kind of the role or the direction that we feel would be the most successful, just letting them understand what processes there are, the various things that county zoning helps with, as well as just getting them comfortable in their new positions.
Her slides are down here. Yeah, okay.
Can we present from back here? Yeah, sure. Just because I have the ability to share my screen, correct, for the video at the end?
Are you in the room right now? Or- Okay, then you should be able to. He can give you.
Okay, thank you. Jamie Polly, Parks Recreation and Forestry Director, and Tom Loveland, our County Forest Administrator, to talk about Objective 5.2, Outcome Measure 3. Do I have the ability to scroll down to?
Gotta share. Or if you just want us to drive, we can do that.
If you could do that, then I'll do the video because I've got that up queued, ready to go. You have to go. Okay. So Outcome Measure 3 is by December 31st, an average of 320 acres of land per year will be acquired for Marathon County parks and the forest systems. It says will be acquired, but as we go through this, you'll see where we're currently at. And this is a goal to be at. It's not something that we physically go out and pursue land, so we'll discuss that in a second. So next slide. So one of the reasons why we feel this one is important and it's very supportive of the plans that the county has is we have our Marathon County Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan that the county board just approved in 2020. It goes through 2024. It has a couple of sections that specifically speak to land purchases and land needs for the county. One of those is that in our county outdoor recreation plan, it does identify that every resident in the county should be within a 20-minute drive of a park. And if you are in the city or in a municipality, the national standard is a 10-minute walk to a park. So we've used a standard for counties where that's not feasible for counties to be at that high intensity. So the 20-minute drive is what we've used, and we do have areas within the western part of the county where we do not have residents within a 20-minute drive of a park. Also with our county parks, they're very different in the amenities that they serve. So even though you may be near Amco Park, it's a small park with ability to go to the river and there's a playground. It's very different from those that live near Dalesville, Clare, or Big Old Plain that have other amenities. So there is identified in the outdoor recreation plan opportunities for sections of the western part of the county where it may be pose itself an opportunity to get some park land to be able to have a county park in that area to serve those residents. There's also identified in there some of our current county parks that have land surrounding them that if purchased or added to the county park would provide more opportunities to link to DNR properties, to fisheries, to trails, to additional resources such as parking like for the sports complex. Stuff like that is identified in that plan as well. And then we have our 15-year Marathon County Forest Comprehensive Land Use Plan, which is really the crux and the Bible that we use for our county forest program. It's a 15-year plan that was just approved by the county board last year as well for the next 15 years. To update that plan, there was a pretty extensive community outreach portion of it, and in that community feedback, there was a lot of support for additional forest lands for recreation. Tom's going to talk about the benefits of county forest land. But one of the things is that when we purchase county forest land and parkland, we do not go out and pursue land that's not available for sale. The only time that we have went and purchased land is land that has become available either by the property owner coming to the county and saying that we would like to work with you on selling our land. Is it available? We've had donations of land, or we see a for sale sign and we reach out just to see what that is. But the county doesn't usually pay anything higher than the appraised value of land, and that's because one of the large stewardship programs that we use through the state is the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund, which funds 50% of a land purchase. And for county forest, that's a highly used program. For county parkland, it's not as used because it's got a lot of other stipulations to it and the uses that go along with it. It's also a much longer process. But we have, let's see, my notes. We also have a segregated land account that is funded by land sales and land leases that helps pay for land purchases as well. Okay, next slide. So just a brief overview. I'm not going to go through all of this, but roughly in the last 5 years during this comprehensive or strategic plan, we purchased a little over 43 acres of parkland, and we purchased a little over or just under 560 acres of county forest land. Just to note, number 2 and number 4 of that county forest list are already land that we've had timber sales on. So they've already generated $92,000 in revenue for the county within the last 5 years of being able to put them into productive forest lands right away. So this is, again, we've used the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund for this. And then, as I mentioned in the beginning, you'll see we didn't get 320 acres a year, but it's a guideline and it's a goal that if we identify land that's within a plan that's beneficial to the county, then it does give us the opportunity to follow that, to have it follow the strategic plan of the county as well as all the other plans that the county put forward. Next slide.
Okay, some of the benefits of expanding park and forest land. So when you have forest land, you want to make sure that you preserve the natural resources from urban sprawl and forest fragmentation. We manage these forests for sustainable timber harvest, wildlife habitat, clean water, watershed protection, and also recreational use by the public is very important. Managing the forest keeps them healthy. It increases, when we purchase land, it increases the annual allowable harvest, so that more revenue comes into the county. So there's a revenue component to that. So in the last 10 years, our timber sales on the county forest lands, which averaged about 625 acres per year in harvest, averaged $355,000 a year. And in the last 5 years, we've taken in $2.4 million in revenue just off the timber sale harvest to offset some of those taxes that might have been generated on those lands. We also have the forest industry in Marathon County and the state of Wisconsin is very important. It's a $24 billion economic impact. We have many mills in Marathon County, Domtar. We used to have Brokaw. We have a mill in Mosinee. So it supports above average wages within the county and the state, which also those monies circulate within the local economies. There is also a potential as we move forward, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but there's some carbon credit markets that are out there that we could potentially tap into. And if we have forests out there, there might be some additional revenues the county might realize over the years. So that would be another important thing to keep in mind. But really the crux of these forests and parks is it enhances the quality of life. We're a department that enhances quality of life, increases space for recreation, sports, hiking, biking, camping, horse trails, hunting, camping, fishing, cross-country skiing, picnicking. And it also does provide some revenue to local townships. Next slide, please. So those benefits to the townships. Before we even attempt to purchase land within a town, we reach out to the individual towns to make sure that they're okay with their purchasing of those lands. And we tell them, or we try to explain to them that they do get some different or additional revenues by having county forest lands in particular. For the last, since 1987, the acreage state share payment from the state used to be 30 cents an acre and it increased to 63 cents per acre. That was something that legislatively we've been working on for a long time. We also share 10% of the gross timber revenue based on a percentage of total acreage within the township. And I'm just going to go through a real quick illustration here. The yearly average to the towns in Marathon County in the last 3 years for county forest lands has been $2.22 an acre. And the town of Gunther has 4,400 and some odd acres of county forest, so that the acreage share payment to the town was $2,800. 10% of the 21 sales was almost $9,500. So they received a check or two checks worth $12,296, which would equal out to be about $2.75 an acre just to the towns in 2022. So, one may ask, how much land should Marathon County own? I can't answer that. All I can illustrate is Marathon County has 1 million acres of land. The county forest and park system is about 3.5% of the total land base. Total public lands within Marathon County, including Meade McMillan Wildlife Area and Plover River and some odd state lands, is about 8%. So only about 80,000 acres of the 1 million acres of total land base in Marathon County is in public lands. So just to illustrate the importance of the county forest, we're going to play a quick little illustration that the Wisconsin County Forest Association worked with a marketing firm, and it gives you the value illustration of the county forests. It's about 2.5, 3 minutes.
While that's being loaded, Tom, I have a very quick question.
Wisconsin's abundant natural resources and iconic North Woods are treasured by residents and visitors alike. Forests make up 47% of the Badger State, equaling 17
Put your microphone by your speaker.
That's going to make it worse.
Because you're joining the WebEx from this, right?
This is the web, yeah, this is the web. It's open right now.
Chairman, I have one comment just before they start. I know the parks and forestry are important in Marathon County, but where does that land come? It comes out of the towns, not out of a city or a village. And once that land is owned by the county, it's not taxable again in the local municipality, the town. So we do lose a little bit there. They did increase what the county does pay for per acre, but still the towns are losing taxable land base.
Part of that might be true. We have to do each town in itself, but the other part of it is much of this land is already in managed forest law, which if it's private and in managed forest law, the taxes paid on it are very minimal as well. So the payment that the towns get in lieu of having that county forest in there is what is supposed to make up that difference of what that managed forest law would. If it's not in managed forest law, then the taxes are a little bit higher. So there is difference.
But then a park is not going to be in a forest. So there is some, I'm just talking as a town representative, that we do lose the tax base because once it becomes owned by the state or the county, we cannot collect any money off of that property.
Okay, hang on, now we gotta go back there. Okay. I know, you're always our IT guy.
I'm going to try and ask my question. Hey, no feedback. Good. Tom, the 1 million acres you said that the county has, that also includes like this building though too, right? Or is that just the park and forest land?
The 1 million acres I was referring to is the total land base within Marathon County, give or take a few acres. But yes, you are correct. Marathon County has, I believe, around 400 to 425,000 acres of forest land, and the rest is farmland, public and private.
That the county owns?
No,
Okay.
in total, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was going to say.
In total.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're way past that goal, bud.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
No, Marathon County, between our county parks and forests, we own about 35,000 acres
Okay.
of public land.
Okay, thank you.
That fast.
I maybe. Well, I'll tell you what, it's 4:42, and we have to have discussion after this, so if y'all want to wander off and take a break right now.
Sorry, that's my bad.
Okay, it didn't feedback. Okay, 5 minute, like I said, take 5 minutes. We're gonna get back at 4:48, and we'll see if the IT stuff can get sorted out. 5 minutes. I can watch on your own, but we have to have discussion after this too, and we've been going for a while now. We're gonna hit 2 hours pretty soon, so why don't you take 5, 4:48, we're gonna come back.